This is a letter from Eli, an ex-Jehovah's Witness, to his friends and family after leaving. Am I a witness anymore? This is a question posed to me by many of my old friends and relatives. The answer is complicated, and the giving of it even more so. This is something that I put a lot of thought into, and the reasons, both ethical and factual, are vast and completely convince me of my heart and mind's position. The hardest thing in my life now, however, is that I'm not free to share my true thoughts and feelings with those I love out of fear of having evil labels cast upon me. I was encouraged by an organization to get baptized as soon as I could, as every young person raised in Jehovah's Witnesses religion, and indeed many others are. I was told that it was not just the best way of life, but the only way, so I signed the rest of my life away at the age of 17 before I could drink, get married, get a credit card, or join the military. Others have been baptized even so much younger than myself, but the results remain the same for them. It's a lifelong contract, even if it was made in ignorance before the legal age of consent. Young people raised in the Jehovah's Witnesses organization get baptized, often because it's the only way of life that they know of, and because it'll make their family happy, and no doubt they believe it will make themselves happy too. I certainly did in my case. If later, as a mature, thinking adult, they discover that there's something wrong with the organization, however, they are trapped by a decision they made perhaps as young as 6 years old. Even the very idea of disagreeing in the slightest with any teaching of the religion is completely prohibited unless you keep it to yourself and put it out of your mind, and yet the governing body professes to be imperfect and prone to making mistakes. However, professing to be imperfect and make mistakes, but never admitting the what, when, or how of those mistakes is a completely empty statement that means absolutely nothing. I would have infinitely more respect for the governing body if they owned their mistakes and showed that they cared about correcting them instead of sweeping them under the rug and calling people who knew about them mentally diseased or Satan's media. An imperfect organization must have things to answer for, but as a witness, which ones are you aware of? Where's the admission of past teachings and statements that never came true, of changing doctrines to keep people trapped in the organization, of organizational mishandling of child and domestic abuse? Honestly, of the extent of shunning when questioned by courts, the extent of mental health issues among believers, the transparency of donated funds. If you read Watchtower literature or watch JW broadcasting, you'll struggle to find a single negative thing spoken or admitted, past or present. If you do find it, it will almost always be a shifting of the blame and responsibility to their followers, or a downplaying or total rewriting of the situation. The governing body are car salesmen of their religion, and they will always show you the good, never the bad and the ugly. They will paint the picture you want to see, because all that matters to them is selling you the car and getting you to sign the contract and adhere to it. But what they don't tell you is that the car is a lemon and the return policy can literally ruin your life. Once you're locked in, to simply disagree when a mistake or even an injustice occurs is viewed as being critical of the men taking the lead. Yet, if a young person makes a mistake, I use the term very loosely, and gets themselves disfellowshipped, or dare I say, realizes that they don't agree with the religion anymore, or even in fact have discovered that the religion isn't even objectively true, then there's no forgiveness or leniency whatsoever extended to them. What they can expect is to be shunned by their own family and cast away from everyone they've ever known and loved, because often witnesses have only made close friends with other witnesses, as they're discouraged from being close to anyone outside of the religion, and the most devout witnesses will take this advice very seriously. You can expect your world to be turned upside down for something as simple as being in a romantic relationship with an unbeliever, or without having constant supervision from other witnesses throughout your courtship, drinking as a minor, celebrating a worldly holiday, or playing music at one, which amounts to working, which my dad and I experienced when a ministerial servant threatened judicial action on us if we didn't cancel the event we were scheduled to play at, or even examining the other side of the argument and expressing doubts that you can't answer and not being completely satisfied with the generic, unsatisfying answers delivered by elders or Watchtower literature. What we have here can only be rightly referred to as a captive organization. You're encouraged to make this commitment as young or as soon as possible, while you're most vulnerable. And once you've made it, you can never leave without having your family torn from you. Not only is this so morally reprehensible, but the Bible's own counsel about how you're to treat wrongdoers is not nearly as black and white in the scriptures as the governing body likes to proclaim. Yet, by keeping it an us versus them, unbalanced mentality, it protects their interests because it keeps any outside information which may present them in a less than flattering light, firmly shut out and kept away from the followers that are supposed to obey them no matter what, even if what you're being told doesn't make sense from a strategic or human standpoint, which is a Watchtower quote. So hopefully you can see why my answer to the above question is very difficult and complicated. The answer I give and the person I give it to could completely change my whole life, and not for the better. You are one of my best friends, and so I dignify you by asking you if I can trust you enough for me to make this leap of faith and put my cards on the table. Are you willing to listen to my opinions and understand your friend, who is the same person you've always known? I promise that I don't expect or require you to change your views or any of your dearly held beliefs. In fact, instead, I would much prefer you to examine your own heart, which is not treacherous as we were taught to believe, and research these things objectively and independently. Your heart and your conscience are so closely intertwined that to not listen to your heart is to deny the greater part of your conscience. Your heart causes you to speak up when something isn't right, even something you're taught not to question, and even if the consequences are great. All of my opinions on this subject are informed decisions based on research and what I consider to be objectively true and moral. But my heart is what has given me the courage and conviction to give them a voice. I hope your heart gives you the courage to listen to that voice and to even reflect on the words it speaks. So the short answer to that terrifying question, am I still one of Jehovah's Witnesses, is absolutely and confidently no.